Rest in peace to Amanda's shame and dignity. Hello, welcome to the Yaoi Shelf. Grab a
Hello,
seat and
welcome.
relax. Um,
Are you feeling relaxed?
I haven't slept in 3 days.
Oh my god.
Uh, I haven't slept in 3 days. Hello, dear listeners. We are so excited to be here. And we
Are
are
we?
being.
Yes, we are. We're very excited.
See, I'm not wearing mascara, so like my eyes still look a little bit dead,
It's
just
okay.
ever
It
so
matches
slightly.
matches how you feel on the inside.
Oh, so sleepy. Oh, I was so sleepy. I got up and I was at that like crucial hour of it's too late to try to go to sleep,
Hmm.
but it's too early to do anything. So I waited an hour in bed on TikTok. Um so I could go get donuts and breakfast tacos at this one
Oh,
place.
that sounds nice.
Oh, it was great. It was great. It was
I
great.
would love to have donuts for breakfast. And like clockwork, because we just hit record, Sansa wants to come inside, so I will have to go and let him
Let's
in.
go get Sansa.
Yes.
Um we haven't had a Sansa break in a while. So welcome, dear listeners. This is the part of the show where Carola lets the cat back in. If you see me periodically checking my mouth in the camera, it is because I am concerned that I'm eating my lipstick. If you are listener only, this interlude makes no sense to you, and I apologize. Um, but I'm glad to be here. It's very early.
What?
Hello.
Hello. I'm back. I'm
All right.
sorry.
No, you're good. Carola, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about writing BL because we are actually both writers. We're both
We
authors.
are. We
We
are.
practice the craft of writing, at least sometimes.
Yeah.
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 Um, so this is something that I feel like we've been pondering for a while.
Yeah.
And we never really felt comfortable doing it. Um, for a myriad of reasons that we'll probably go on to explain later. We just never really felt comfortable broaching the subject.
Mm.
But new year, same trash us. You know,
Trashier. Trashier. I
trashier somehow. I think that was my motto going into like 2021 or 2022. It was like New Year, same petty me.
yeah. That's a
Um,
good one, you know?
that it's
Like
like nothing's really changed.
just gotta stick with the things that work, I feel.
Right. Bitterness, being dead
Yeah.
inside. Um,
At least you know you'll accomplish it. You're good
right.
at it, you know?
I'm I am excellent at being dead inside and still
Yeah.
looking quite good.
Yeah.
Um,
Same.
like
I'm
most
really good at
authors.
being trash.
Yeah, like realistically most writers. Um,
Yeah.
so we finally decided to put our money where our mouths are and talk about uh
Uh,
and talk about writing BL and what brought us here and why we refuse to leave and is this fetishizing gay men?
oh my god, I don't want to have this conversation.
Guess who's back? Back again.
It never left, Amanda. It
We
never
got
left.
we got like the briefest reprieve.
Yeah.
We got like a small reprieve, but now it's back. Tail.
Yeah, Tail. He's
Um,
here.
my current favorite thing on the internet right now are aunties trying to watch Trigun, especially Trigun
Oh god.
Stampede, where like the incest ship is pretty much canon, and they're just like not sure what to do with themselves.
I'm just
Because Trigun 98, like in theory, you could find a straight ship in there. I don't know where, but in theory, you could find one.
I mean, I've only seen 8 episodes, so I can't speak to that yet.
Yeah, like blinking you'll miss it, but you could probably find a straight, non-complicated pairing in 98 Trigun.
Yeah, but I don't wanna.
I mean, I don't either.
There's enough straight things everywhere. Like I don't need to look for straight ships, okay? They're everywhere.
I don't. Same. Uh, this is the part of the show where we do this twice now, where we say we're on Patreon. These episodes are hilariously demonetized, and will
Wonder
never be
why.
monetized. So, if you would like to support the show and help us keep the metaphorical and physical lights on, you can do so at patreon.com/the Yaoi Shelf. Again, that is patreon.com/the Yaoi Shelf. Carola, would you like to describe the last unhinged episode we just did for our patrons?
How do you even describe what we did the last time? It was a dramatic reading.
It was.
It was glorious
It
and
was.
unhinged.
It was.
Amanda has a very sexy voice to
Thank
make up for the dignity that no longer exists.
you. There was a disassociation. There was
Yeah,
song.
yeah, there was some song.
There was singing. There was disassociation.
It was beautiful. I was enjoying it. Also, I was blonde, so if you ever wonder what I look like, platinum blonde,
Yeah.
become a patron. But
Yeah,
yeah, it
absolutely.
was. We say this every month, but it was truly the most unhinged episode ever. It also, some nice, no pun intended, plugging for a fanfic author in that episode.
I'm almost tempted to like reach out and tell them like, "Hey, so I did this."
It's like a more advanced version of Wank and Tell. It's like we read this on our podcast.
Well, there are like podfics,
Oh.
which is basically just like an audible for your
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
smut.
yeah.
So like, but I don't think that was good enough to consider it to be a podfic because like there's no like production, and I'm still disassociating in the background.
Yeah. And then,
Usually,
we had to take some breaks.
I had to take several breaks.
You kept asking me what my color was.
I did.
We take safe words very very
We do.
seriously
We
on
do.
the
We do.
Yaoi Shelf.
We
We
do. We
do.
do.
But we were good.
Um,
It was good. I had so much fun. It was so much fun. My face was hurting so much after because I was laughing so much.
But patrons get all different kinds of cool stuff. We appreciate it. And now on with the show
Oh
in
god.
which we discuss writing BL as
Yes.
some actual BL writers. Now, because we are biological women, we can't just say we do something. We have to thrust forward all of our credentials in one fell swoop. Otherwise, people won't believe us. I've had this happen to me during panels where people will ask me what my credentials are for running a panel, and I would just say the convention gave me the microphone and not you.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you. Uh, so,
I mean, valid.
right,
Mic drop.
it's like, what are your credentials to be speaking on this? Well, I put in the application. So,
Or they invited me to speak on this.
or,
I guess
or
I
they
guess I
invited
know
me,
what I'm talking about.
or I'm sleeping with the convention organizer. So,
Or I also am a convention
yeah,
organizer. No,
I
but-
organized the convention,
Oh,
and I'm
God.
sleeping with the other convention organizer.
Yeah.
So, as a BL writer, I started writing fan fiction when I was about 11 or 12 in shockingly hetero spaces, but it was really nothing like that smutty, and it was very much like this objectively horrible villain and like some very, very tender fluff.
You haven't changed that much.
I really haven't in some ways. I really didn't start writing BL until I was like 16, probably. I was writing as male characters, but it was always straight stuff. So I don't think I wrote BL really until I was 16. And then from there, I started doing a lot of like calling them a commission now feels disingenuous, but it was almost like a moonshine system where like my friends would request something, I would crank it out on notebook paper and they would pay in like pizza and single dollar bills.
The glorious life of a high school writer.
Right. So like calling it a commission now feels like very disingenuous because they're my friends. They wanted,
Yeah.
I don't know, it was a lot of Naruto back in the day. So it was like they wanted Kakashi and Sasuke. I was like, okay, yeah, sure.
But I mean,
Be,
at
be
least
done by seventh period.
at least you had the what the foresightedness to actually get something back from them, because I never did that. I just cracked out things for my friends and didn't and it was like begging them to give me feedback. Like that was the
Oh, we
only
had a
reward I got.
whole
No one gave me pizza. No
we
one
had
fed
a
me pizza.
whole thing, and it ended up becoming like a big fiction project for me. Is that we almost like started like our own little like smut manga company where we're voice acting in the library, we're writing fanfic. Like we really could have been like our own little like smut house in our high school. So I started writing boys love when I was about 16 years old, and I have stayed in that space both long form and short form. I've done some original series. We're going to talk about some stigma with fanfic writers and in
I'm
particular.
Yes. I'm just looking at the outline wondering why the hell I haven't filled this out. But it's fine. I'll
And you
just let
told me you got it. So I know you
Yeah,
so I
it's
also know
fine.
that this is pin Porsche related.
What? No. What? It's not. No. Actually, I'm not going to blame Kim Porsche because I have been incredibly busy this week. I have an event coming up that I'm
I know
working
you
on
do.
Tuesday, and it is a nightmare.
So
So,
I've also done a lot of role plays, which I really like role playing. Um, and I've been a part of some of the biggest content sites for fan fiction, like Tumblr, like DeviantArt, um, Quizzilla, rest in peace, a little bit of fanfiction.net. And you can still find me on AO3 and Tumblr to this day. Um,
subscribe to Amanda's IO3.
do sure. I was gonna say don't, but also
Do
like there's but go for it. I still take a lot of pride in saying that I'm a writer, even if it means that I don't publish as regularly. Um, because I feel like half of being a writer is just saying you're a writer
Yeah.
and then like never actually writing.
Yeah. I don't know if you've noticed, like the past week or so, I've had on my Discord, like my personal status thing, trying to write outside my head
Yes.
because I can only write in my head when I'm out walking or when I
Yes.
go to bed. Like I can't
Yes.
physically write, and it's driving me insane.
No, so my thing that will happen is I will be on the verge of sleep. I'm like Ebenezer Scrooge in like a novel. I have like the cover pulled up. I have my satin bonnet and my eye mask, and then it's like my eyes will open. It's like porn, and I
Yeah,
have to like
exactly.
rise out of bed.
I have a note. I actually have two notes, two separate notes, because I tried to keep the notes separate for
Mhm.
different characters, but they are all just a mess now. And I just have two different notes on my phone that are just like it's a mix between half written dialogues, like half sentences that I want to write, and
Mhm.
words that I'm trying to use, and it's just chaos. And one day I will write out these ideas, but right
Mood
now,
insane.
oh god. And
Oh,
most of those are written when I'm outside or when I'm in
yes.
bed. Yeah.
Also, I do have an English degree. I graduated from a
Oh yeah.
university with a double major in English and communications. Um, I spent a lot of time at university studying literary criticism, research methodology, and I read a lot of like poetry. And my modern approach now is very, very research heavy. And it is also as free form as the days are long. I know fanfic writers that will write fanfic, and I am a pentameter, and I don't know what fucking clout game they're going for, but they can do it themselves. I don't know what fucking weird ass clout game some of these writers have trying to write their smut like it's the Aeneid. Fuck that. Nobody has time for that.
I guess I guess someone clearly has
So
time for that.
someone clear
Somebody,
like
not
there's
you, but
part of it that's like, wow, that is really impressive that like you timed this character's thrusts to a song. Like that's really impressive. But also, shut up, you try hard. The end of our live conversation.
Oh god.
Carola, would you like to tell the dear listeners at home how you are an actual writer who is better than me in every way?
Stop it. I am not. First of all, I would like to preface this entire thing by saying that most fanfic writers, you included, have more readers than I have as someone who is published. And when I say published, I am an indie author, okay? So I'm self published.
It's still
And
publishing.
I know, but I just, I know we're not supposed to talk ourselves down in this episode. I just feel like
Well, okay, so maybe we won't talk it down, but like we will both lift up. We are both good at our respective things. Yeah.
yes, yes. But yeah, no, okay, so credential wise, like I've always been writing like since I learned how to write, and I was like when I was like 7 or 8, I made like these picture books, and I had like a library in my room that I and my only customer was my best friend, and I would write books for him and he would check them out, and it was it was a very cute thing. Um and then, oh my god, someone is in a mood. If you're a listener only, you're not seeing my cat attacking me in real time.
The cat couldn't handle how cute that sentence was because it was like, that's adorable. I hate it.
It
That's
was
really
actually,
cute.
I even like made little labels and pretended to scan them for him. So there was
Okay,
a whole, yeah.
that's really cute. That's like disgustingly cute.
I know. It's probably the cutest I've ever been, to be honest. But yeah, and then I found out that that was actually a type of fan fiction because I was writing derivative works based on our favorite book series.
Mhm,
But then I discovered fan fiction when I was around 11 or 12.
mhm.
Like I started writing when I was 11 or 12, fanfic. And because also today is Koji Musa Day. It is the day of rocket shipping. It's Jesse and James's day, so it's very fitting because they were my venture into fanfic. Because I did get my start in headship, but it didn't last very long.
Same, and I feel like we're gonna have to talk about that. Is that
Yeah,
we did start with het chips, and then something happened.
yeah. Like I had one headship, and oh my god, are you seeing this? He's okay. He's
He's
leaving.
he's vicious. I love him.
He's like spring antsy, so he's really overstimulated and gets real angry real quick. So he's fun to be
No,
with.
he's perfect. I
Yeah,
love.
you think so. No. But yeah, so Team Rocket, my portal into everything nerdy,
Mhm,
including fanfiction. And then I don't really know what happened because there were like a couple of years there where I wasn't really writing or consuming any
mhm,
fanfic, and then I guess Naruto hit, and I
mhm,
started. I got back into it, and that's when I started writing like gay fanfic, and
mhm.
mostly, it was Sasunaru, it was Bleach, um,
Why was Sasunaru it for both of us?
because it is the it is the best.
Wait,
Like, did you
what?
did you see that I retweeted this thing about how they are literally every single ship dynamic, like they are all of
They
them,
are.
because I think that's such a big deal because, first of all, soulmates and actually canonically in love, but also they fit every single like trope credential, so it's really easy to use them, and it was like the biggest series at the time. But I think I consumed more than I wrote at that point.
Mhm.
And then as we know, I have a major hard on for characters and ships that no one care about. So so I was very lonely in a couple of my fandoms writing fics about
Mhm.
characters from movies no one cared about. Um because I essentially had to satisfy my own need for these pairings. And I think that's when I really
Mhm.
like started writing like gay stuff, and then somehow it branched out because it started in like 2005. I know this was 2005. Oh, I'm aging myself. But because my friend was on exchange, and while she went on exchange, she started reading. Like, she hadn't been interested in reading before,
Mhm.
but she started reading while she was on exchange, and I started writing her stories and sending them to her and getting
Aw.
feedback. And then because I needed like, and these were initially like fanfics,
Mhm.
but then I needed like characters, like background characters, and then these
Mhm.
characters started taking on their own persona. So in 2005, Aki, Yuki, Lao, and Maya were born, and they became the main characters of my later novel series.
Mhm.
So, which again, everything I do is like an accident. So in 2007, I did NaNoWriMo for the first time.
Yep.
And sometimes I wish I never jumped on that train, honestly, because we all know what happens to me in November. I turn into this gremlin. It is awful. It is horrible.
You also make it sound like you haven't been that gremlin the entire time.
Yeah, but it's just
It does get a little bit worse during NaNoWriMo,
it's
which is National
awful.
Novel Writing Month
Oh
to
yeah,
those
yeah.
who don't participate. But like you make it sound like you aren't that all the other months of the year.
Yeah, but it's just it's different because it's the
It is.
one
It is.
month,
It's
or should I
different.
say the 1 week of the year where I'm actually productive, because I am an insane human being and I can't do nano in 1 month like everyone else.
See,
I need to do it
I have
faster.
never been able to do nano, and it's almost like the universe conspires against me. Like I'll set out to do it, and then like something will happen, and it's like, well, I can't do this
Yeah.
shit right now.
Yeah. No, there's been a couple of years where I didn't do it, mostly because my mental health was so bad during those years that I couldn't do anything. But
Rude.
generally, it is the only time of the year that I sit down and write seriously. So all my
Mhm,
novels at this point, I've published four novels, and they're all
mhm,
nano novels, so they were all written during November, but some of them were
mhm,
written over the course of 2 Novembers. But this
mhm,
all started because in 2007 I did nano for the first time, and then we got this, they had like this prize for us when we hit the 50K, which was like you get this code and you can get like one copy of your novel printed for free and shipped to you.
mhm,
And so I did that just to have it as a memento for myself. But then I
mhm.
mentioned it to my friend who was running a bookstore, and he was like, "Oh, but if you actually publish it, we'll stock it." And then I accidentally published a novel, which which then led to what I'm doing now. So
Yeah.
it's been like a weird thing. And then I've done some, I've written some things that are like online. Like I have an advent calendar that's on Tapas. It's on Tapas at least. So I have some online only publications, and I am desperately trying to do this Patreon thing, but the world is working against me.
So those are our credentials and what got
I've
us
also studied English literature. Yes.
English majors unite. We're not good for
Mm,
much anything.
no.
Uh,
Look
we're
at
not
us.
good. Yeah, look at us.
Look at us. What are we doing?
Yeah. You know what? Though I'm sure that there's some teacher that I had when I was in school that's probably very, very proud of me, and that makes me sad.
No. Why does it make you sad?
Because look at me.
But you're amazing. Like
Thank you.
I remember we had to hand in, like, we had these books we had to like write our, like,
Mhm,
not essays but like our creative writing assignments and
mhm,
our writing assignments in English class when I was in school. And then we would hand in this book and they would grade it in the book. And I remember one time I dared to ask my English teacher in a footnote if she thought I could become a writer and then like an actual author when I grew up. And she was like, "Yes, I think you can," with a smiley face. And that is like one of the most awkward but also nicest memories I have. But also the fact that this teacher never gave me back that book at the end of one of the school years. So I don't even have it anymore.
oh, well,
Well, she has it as a memento. If I ever become famous, she can like auction it off or something.
do you want her to know what you're doing with that inspiration?
I mean, they know what I'm doing.
Okay, because I think
I
that's my other big thing is like I do have that like not just the imposter syndrome of like feeling like I'm not a real writer because like I could probably point to I forgot to mention I'm also a blogger and media critic.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, so I'm a columnist and blogger. Um, so like I can point to my blog and I don't have a lot of shame with that because that feels like real writing. When I do like think pieces, that feels like real
Mm,
writing. But for whatever reason, probably the misogyny,
yeah.
fanfic never felt real. Um, Here is our first question that is not on the script. What is your go-to writing beverage?
What do you think it is?
It is a Red Bull.
Yeah, it's Red Bull. Ideally, it would be Dark Dog, but they don't make that anymore. But yeah, Red Bull and lots of it help. It's
Dr.
the
Pepper.
only Dr. Pepper, really?
Dr. Pepper.
Does that have
And
caffeine?
so much.
Because because there's this weird thing. I don't know because this is a side note, but we have Mountain Dew here,
Yeah.
but they rebranded it so the one that we have here now doesn't have caffeine anymore.
So it's
And
not
it's
Mountain Dew.
really weird. Yeah, but it says Mountain Dew, but it doesn't have caffeine. So I was just like, I don't know if the Dr. Pepper they sell here actually has
Oh.
caffeine. Because apparently
Okay.
they like to like just take it out. I don't know.
That's so weird. Yeah, I mean, I was a kid and I had Surge for the first time, and Surge is like Mountain Dew with more caffeine.
Mm.
And I had that as a little kid, and I was like up all night long, watching British comedies, like just like Doctor Who and like Chef. And my parents caught me, and I was watching. Oh my god, was it Poltergeist? Where like just the kids like
Oh
in
my
from the
god.
television, and my parents are just like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Um,
The question is, what were they doing? You should be having
Sleeping.
caffeine. Yeah, okay.
Well, no, like I was okay. So like we were in a hotel for a thing. I don't know why we were in a hotel. I think it was like a work thing for my mom, and like some of her friends were there with their kids, and like the older boys got to babysit me. I promise it sounds like a grosser setup than it is, because like as I said it, it's like that sounds like a gross setup. Nothing gross happened.
I
um,
didn't think it's that, but okay. But this is the world we live in.
yeah, but
Everyone
it was
just
like it was one of
assumes
those
the
moments
worst
where
now.
yeah, it's one of those moments like I realized like as I was saying it, like that sounds like a gross setup. It's not. But like they gave me Surge.
Oh my god.
So like I'm like
Great
sick.
babysitting.
Yeah,
That's
they're like, preteens, early teens, and I'm like 6.
oh my
And it's
god.
like, here's a Surge. And I'm just like, wee! Like whatever like high pitched noise R2D2 makes, that was me.
I can imagine it. Oh my god. No, I didn't start consuming caffeine. And again, because I still don't like coffee or anything. Like I
I
only
love
drink
coffee.
energy drinks, but I
Fucking love
started drinking
coffee.
them when I was like 12. And we would get like because I don't know what it's like over there, but here it's like when you hit the 8th grade, you're allowed to go to the stores during lunch hour. So the stores are usually very close to the schools, and a lot of them are now like if you're a school kid, you're not allowed to go in between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. or something because they shoplift and they make a lot of noise. And I don't know, but we would
They do
always
what children do.
yeah, but we would so from the 8th grade you're allowed to go to the store during lunch hour. So we would go and like buy, sweet rolls and snacks and energy drinks. And I am so sensitive to caffeine. So I would be like vibrating and then we'd have like a 90-minute period of like Norwegian grammar or whatever. And I'm just sitting there like shaking in my seat. This is
So
why I stopped growing at 12.
okay, so here's why I stopped growing at 12. My grandfather was Air Force, and he started giving me coffee when I was a toddler.
What?
Like he would let it cool down and like put it in my bottle.
See, you were made to be a writer. Like if you started drinking coffee as a toddler.
So it'd be like my grandpa. He's drinking his coffee, and I'm like sitting on his lap. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. We're
Oh
watching
my
mass.
god.
We're watching the Catholic mass on television. I'm just like chugging back,
This is insane.
like basically a cold brew. It's cold coffee with like 90% cream and sugar, so it's like
Oh,
crunchy.
okay.
But like there's still coffee in it, so I'm just like I'm chewing my coffee with a fork and a knife, basically, because it's just
Oh my god.
creamer and sugar.
I think I lost all will to ever try coffee again when I was like 4 because we had like these this was the 90s, right? So we
Yes.
had like everyone had these Disney glasses, like these Disney drinking glasses with Mickey Mouse and Donald and
Yes.
everything on them. And so those were always mine. I would always drink from those. And then my
Mhm.
dad had poured some of his old cold coffee over in one of these glasses to get a new cup. But I
Mhm.
thought it was Coke. So I like chugged it and it was cold coffee and I hated it so much. I never wanted to taste coffee ever again after that. I was like 4. I was apparently not made
Nope.
for the coffee life.
Massive coffee
But
drinker.
you gotta remember, we are in Norway, so this was black coffee, cold black coffee. That wasn't very appealing. There was no sugar in that thing.
Yeah, that doesn't sound pleasant for children.
No, it was awful.
Okay, next question. Do we have writing routines?
I think I put that in there, and then I was like, why?
Yeah, I was like, what? Yeah, I
No.
didn't put that there because I sure
No,
as
I put that there because I wanted to know if you had any routines. Because
um so
this is just us putting each other on the spot. It's just like
it really is, because like I remember I started the outline, I sent it to Carola, and then like I looked back and like I don't remember typing that question, but okay.
it's just me
So
gaslighting you.
I'm being gaslit. So I think I used to, like, when I was like regularly publishing, tearing out fanfic from my notebook to give it to my friends. Like I had a schedule. It's like, okay,
Mm.
Nicole wanted this Zaku and Kabuto fic. I have to have it to her by like tomorrow at third period. Oh, my main fiction series, I'm in between classes right now. I can have the next chapter done by the end of this week. Or even when I was on Quizilla, a big thing that we did was metric based updates. So it'd be if this gets 20 comments or like 20, whatever like the engagement metric was,
Mm.
we would say, okay, you get an update if
Oh
you hit
yeah,
these
I
metrics.
remember that. I remember that. That was a
So,
thing.
usually I would I say like I'm bulk writing. I'm 13. So just, feverishly typing, on my word processor. You know, I would always type in a notebook or
Mm.
notepad on the PC because if I put it in Word didn't understand all the Japanese.
Oh yeah.
And I got frustrated having to correct all the Japanese all the time. So I just imported everything into Notepad because Notepad didn't care. You could be
No.
writing like backwards satanic verses in Notepad and Notepad wouldn't care. Um, so I definitely did have a schedule when I was younger. I think, role playing was great because either you were doing it turn by turn really, really fast,
Mm.
or as I got older, it's like, okay, well, this one turn is like 10,000 words.
Yeah.
So you'll get it sometime tomorrow, Like this one turn is anywhere between 1,000 to 5,000 words. See you in a couple of hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the closest thing I got back to a schedule when I was really, really good on my blog, I was posting once every week, so 4 updates a week. When I was doing my Matt and Mello fanfic, we updated almost every week. But also, like, those chapters were pretty short. They're like 1,000-word chapters.
Mm.
So it wasn't. I don't say that to diminish how hard it is to write 1,000 words. I'm just
No, no.
saying, like, it was easier. I'm using air quotes to just knock out 1,000 words. Just knock out 1,000 words.
Mm.
Just knock out 1,000 words. And I was pretty much writing that as I was updating it. Like there was no like
Yeah.
I've bulk written ahead. It's oh shit,
Yeah, because I think that's one of those things that scared me so much about because when
Mhm.
I used to write fanfic, I mostly wrote one shots
Mhm.
and like porn without plot mostly.
Mhm.
I did write a couple of chapter fics, but they were rarely more than like 4 chapters, except this
Mhm.
one that was very ambitious and it's been abandoned for so many years, and occasionally I still get notifications that people have subscribed to it and I'm like, oh my god, but I abandoned that
The
in
worst. The
yeah
the worst kind. Well,
the worst guilt. But because
yeah.
I was just because I used to be afraid of writing longer stories, but also
Mhm.
that writing as because I don't know what's going to happen when I write. I very rarely
Same.
have an idea of where the story is going to
Same.
go. So I would have to bulk write. I would prefer to just have everything written out and then post on a
Mhm.
regular schedule once it's
Mhm.
all written out, rather than trying to post as I'm writing, because that is
See,
terrifying to me.
and there's this part of me that like almost likes not doing that as a
Mm,
fanfic writer because like I was writing my Matt and Mello fic, it was kind of cool to almost like be able to take audience feedback and be like, oh, they
yeah.
really, really responded to this. let me sprinkle a little more in here.
Yeah,
And
and
you,
sometimes you can even get
yeah,
ideas from that, like
exactly. And you mentioned something that I feel like a lot of authors don't really talk about because there's no way to talk about it without sounding like really, really mentally ill, which is like my characters are not me. I
Mhm.
am not any of my characters. When I am writing them, that is them in
Yeah, yeah,
their
yeah.
world. I am not God. I don't know what's going on.
No, no.
You enter almost like a fugue state. It's sort of like that movie Ghost,
Mm.
where Patrick Swayze, you know, jumps into the body of Whoopi Goldberg and then jumps back out. It's like what the fuck. Except in
Yeah,
my
it's
case,
like
it's usually questionable blonde twinks.
I was listening to this Titanic podcast the other day because listen, I love Titanic things and I found a podcast that is just like Titanic lore. Anyway, so
Okay, I've been judgmental about a lot of your choices. I think that was the most judgmental. And I was like,
no,
really, girl?
no, but Titanic, like from a historical perspective, like this is an amazing podcast, okay? But the point is, like, she's covering like all kinds of things. And the episode I was
Mm-hmm.
listening to the other day was about like all the spiritual things, people who were
Yes.
like having seances to talk
Yes.
about, yeah, and she was talking about how, the Victorians and the Edwardians, when they did the whole spiritual seance thing, they had the
Automatic
automatic
writing.
writing. Yeah, that's how I write. I'm like,
Same.
it's just
Same.
they're just doing whatever. And this is how one of my novels came to be because
Mm-hmm.
someone had to go and friggin' kiss this other guy. They weren't even supposed to meet. And then I was like, what the fuck just happened? And now
Well,
they
and
have been in
it's
a dysfunctional non-relationship since
and it's so
2005.
hard to talk about because like especially it's easier to talk about like in fandom because I feel like most of us kind of see like fandom in that way.
Mm,
Like we are not the characters. So like my favorite question is always what anime would you ever want to be in? And I'm always like myself or my OC.
mm.
And they're like, what's the difference? Like, well, me, I don't want to be in any anime. I'm fat, black, and asthmatic. I don't want to be in anything. I don't want to be in Inuyasha's forest. I don't want to be in the fascist hell that's Full Metal Alchemist. I don't want to be anywhere. This does not belong anywhere in anime. Now, do I have an OC that's perfect for that scenario? Yeah.
Mm.
Probably had them for 20 years at this point. Um, but yeah, like it's hard to explain to people that it's like, especially when you write problematic content, that
Yeah.
it's like sometimes it feels weird to almost say like it's not me doing it. Because
But
I've definitely gone to write something one way and it ends completely
oh
differently.
yeah.
And I've just been like, what did I do?
But because you didn't. Because you didn't.
I
Because your
didn't.
characters. And that's the thing. Like, I generally have, like, I think we've talked about this before. I have, like, an idea. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
have, like, a main idea, and then I
Mm-hmm.
generally know how it's going to end. I just don't know
Mm-hmm.
how I'm going to get there. And then the
Yes.
characters just take that information and they run with it. And I have no control what these idiots are going to be
Yeah.
doing. And,
And
and
I,
sometimes you'll be like, no, this is not what is going to happen in this chapter. What are you doing? And they're just over there like
mood.
freaking ruining their lives.
Yeah, like honest, it's like it is sometimes it feels like did you ever watch like Gakko and Babysitters and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Where
Yes.
it's like, okay, we're gonna go take a nap and just like kids like playing with blocks and pots and pans.
Yeah.
That's writing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like
We're gonna do this.
wrangling.
Yeah.
It's kind of like having multiple personalities,
Yeah.
but also wrangling children.
Right. Like it does very much like, okay, we're gonna do a structured activity and all your characters are just like fighting each other like physically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
Or
interesting.
fucking each other.
Or
Uh,
or both fighting
or
and fucking.
both. Or both.
I followed this magpie who has sadly passed away. Her name was Sophie, and her owner, kept her in this really really big aviary, but she got to interact with other birds. And one thing that that he kept saying a lot was, "Are you fighting or are you flirting?" Because like magpie stuff apparently looks very very similar. It's like, are you flirting? Are you fighting? Whatever it is, please stop it.
Yeah.
But
That sounds about right.
so I think you also ended up answering this a little bit. Like, I don't think either of us really have a routine.
No, I think
Really.
the closest I get to having a routine, aside from really wanting, I've told myself for years, I am going to start writing a little bit every day. I never do it. But the closest I get is like, especially during nano, because
Yeah.
it's like I because obviously then I write night and day, but like I write the best between like 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. in
Mhm.
the morning, which is very inconvenient. And then I have like a writing diet, so like the best things to consume in order to have the energy to write is Red Bull, Pringles, and donuts. This is what I eat. This is how my novels are made. Help
Uh,
me.
my writing diet is mental illness,
Okay, that too. Fine.
um, techno music, and usually like very, very intense feelings.
Hmm.
I'm also definitely like a performer. I like the pressure of having people watch me, but like or like know that I'm writing. Like I
Mm.
mentioned a few times, like I have this muse that I used to date, and like having her be like, "Hey, are you done? I want to see what you're working on." Or when I was dating my last partner, because we used to role play together. That's actually how we met. Is that we
Mhm.
were RP partners, and then turns out when you write 100,000 words of gay shit towards each other, sometimes you kind of end up kiss kiss fall in love. Um, but I liked the pressure of being watched subtly,
Mm.
but yeah, like I don't really have like a writing diet, but if I had to, it's usually chocolate, Dr. Pepper, and like very, very intense, like 150 to 180 BPM, like house techno.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes. Um, I did a lot of writing to Applause by Lady Gaga.
I'm just
Just
gonna pretend like I've ever heard it.
okay, but once you hear
Because
it, you'll be like, that's an Amanda song.
but do you
Um,
do you have like, because I have like playlists. I have for some characters I have character playlists, and then I have like soundtracks for all the
I
novels
haven't
or all
done
the
a
stories.
character playlist in so no, I'm lying. My former partner and I, we did character playlists. Um, I have like a main writing playlist. I also do like if I'm trying to like stay in theme. So like when I was writing Gravitation, I listened to a lot of Gravitation music
Mm,
because I
yeah,
like glean information from those lyrics, which is why I still ship Yuki Eri and Yuki Kitazawa.
silently. Doesn't judge you at all. I'm not. What? I said nothing.
Because if you listen to Anti Nostalgic, that song is clearly about Kitazawa.
We could have this discussion at another time. Isn't it? But then isn't anti nostalgic? Isn't that Shuichi's song?
It's the song that Eri wrote with him in mind for the OVA.
No, that's Shining Collection.
That is Shining Collection. Anti-nostalgic is one of Suichi's. You're right.
Yeah,
Either
yeah,
way, it's a Kitazawa thing, and don't make me answer that question further.
yeah.
Uh, and then all of Ryuichi's songs are just I want to fuck Suichi. Even before like Suichi was born, because Ryuichi's in his 40s. So
I feel like Shuichi would be absolutely okay with that. Like his idol has been wanting to meet him since before he was born. Like, yeah, that makes sense to him.
oh, now it's gross. Oh, oh, it's bad now.
No. But
um,
and then sometimes I'll get like someone like my girlfriend will come in while I'm listening to my writing music, and it will
yes.
be like a character's music, and I will get super defensive because it will be like some horrible music that I would never listen to, but I need it for the story. And I'm like, don't judge me. This is Inari's playlist, okay? This is me.
I also
Very
sometimes like I'll listen to a song and it's like I really want to write a scene inspired
mm.
by or
Yeah,
to
yeah,
this.
yeah.
So like there's a song by Yell called OMG. And
Mm,
I was driving home when I went back to Dallas Fort Worth for a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I really want to write an overdose to this
mm,
because it felt like between like the BPMs and everything, it's like this feels like so oppressive,
mm.
and it's like I really want to write an overdose, like a drug overdose
Yeah,
set to
yeah,
this,
yeah.
and like sometimes you just have those moments. I will say this. I'm usually not super gatekeepery about like being a writer and the writer experience. But I think the thing about being a writer, and this is something that I've learned, is that we are fundamentally so fucked up that
Yes.
like no, not everyone can do it. Just like by nature of like we're broken, horrible people. Like especially for BL, like we're not good people. Like we're something's wrong with us.
Yeah,
like
but
affectionately. Like something's
affectionately.
wrong.
I just wanna put a disclaimer on that, like put a little pin in
Yeah.
it and be like, that is not, a nod of approval to you antis out there who think that all
No.
BL people are horrible
No, not at
fetishizing.
all.
No.
But it's like I was
But
thinking about it. And it's like you can definitely tell like it's so weird gatekeeping art
mm,
because part of you always wants to be like art is subjective, as long as someone's being creative, it's fine. But then there are things that are just not good. And like yeah, like you can definitely tell there's like a soullessness sometimes when you read queer romance written by someone who is maybe not as in group as someone else.
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, we're fucking weird. We're really weird. Like, yeah, like I oh my god, the writing music I listen to is insane. Like the characters that I make are insane. Like all of them are crazy. And
Yeah.
it's great. It's amazing. It's one of the most interesting things that I do, but like you can't bottle that. You can't I mean there so in America right now we have a writers guild strike
Yes,
where a
I've
lot of
seen
the
this.
writers are striking for better access to pay and unionizing. And one woman's sign said, um, AI can't fake childhood trauma.
Yeah, I saw that. I think I retweeted that actually.
And it's like, that's it. Like that's like that's it.
That's all of us.
You did
No.
it. Like that's the sign. Because everyone's like, oh, just write secession with AI. And it's like, yeah, but it's not gonna be the same. You need that one fucked up girl who hasn't said anything in the writer's room who's just like eating cigarettes. You need her. Because she's the one that has the zinger.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think all authors have like trauma or whatever, but I definitely think that all
No.
authors are weird and have
Yes.
like these, and it's like, and it's this thing that only other authors understand, because I remember there was a couple of years ago there was like there's this one Norwegian author. She's well known for not only her good novels, but because
Mhm.
she is incredibly outspoken and
Mhm.
is at war with the one tram we have in the city. She's from
Mhm.
here, so she's very famous for all of these things, and she was interviewed because she had recently moved from her house to an apartment, and she had
Mhm.
like the newspaper. They came over to visit her in the new apartment to talk about her new book, and she talked about how one of her characters, who is he's a gay man
Mhm.
who makes like storefront windows, and he
Mhm.
decorates like storefront windows. So he's got that decorative gene. So she was like,
Mhm.
yeah, he helped me decorate the apartment. And literally everyone was like, this woman is insane. But I'm over
Mhm.
here like, no, that is a very author thing. That is true. I have objects in my home that my characters have picked out. Like I have this
Yeah,
snow
same.
globe that I bring out each Christmas, which is like Aki's snow globe, because he picked it out. Because it's
Right.
and that's
Well, and
normal
I
for us, but everyone
also
else is like,
there's this thing in a BoJack Horseman where Diane is a writer, and like I always really related to her character because one thing she does is she also had a lot of childhood trauma, and she tries to parlay that into a writing career. And she wants to write like her like next big great American novel. She wants to be like a serious writer.
mm,
And what she ends up doing, and I guess spoiler for BoJack Horseman, she ends up writing like almost like not quite YA, but like middle school novels
mm,
where it's like it's about like this like plucky like girl detective and it's like fun and she has like this crisis of faith about it. It's like, no, I need to show that my damage is the good damage that can
mm,
make art, that makes serious art. And
mm.
like, yeah, it's that. It's I don't think that you have to be messed up to make art. But I think there's a very specific kind of art made by very messed up
Yeah,
people.
yeah, that makes
Now,
sense.
is that an excuse to be a garbage person? No,
No.
because we if you're in any space that has a lot of older artists, like painters or writers, you are grappling with the idea that everyone was terrible all the time. So the the softball lobbed at that most of the time is, oh well, they were mentally ill, they were a genius, oh blah 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 blah. I love the work that Frida Kahlo made as a painter.
Mm,
I hate what she had to go through to get there.
yeah.
End of sentence. Next question that is not in the script.
Oh God. Okay. Like fuck this script. See, this episode is a perfect example of how we write because it's just like there's an outline, throws it out the window.
Well, no, and I think for me it was more of I started this outline and then I realized as we were talking at the top of the show, I was like, there's a lot of things that I know you have that little inhaler for your sinuses, but every time it does remind me of like those little like cocaine sniffer boxes that people used to use during the Victorian era. And it's like
Please.
that is so writer of you. Just like casually, just
No,
I know what it
disclaimer.
is.
I went for a walk and I met my friend and her two dogs, and now
Mhm.
I am suffering, but I got all the cuddles.
Oh.
So I'm very happy. They are literally like little clouds on legs, and I love them. But I am dead. I have died. I
But
was trying to be subtle about it.
no, I have severe ADHD. I'm an only child with severe ADHD. I'm like an owl. I just notice everything. Uh, but I want to take a moment to talk about fanfic versus fiction.
Okay.
Because for many, many years, there's been this like line in the sand that there's real writers and fanfic writers. In the same way that there's a line in the sand of there's artists and there's fan artists.
I hate that.
I hate it too. Now, at least for art, unless you went to like a school for art, most people can look at fan art and still be like, some skill went into this,
Mhm.
as long as it's not made by AI, because fuck AI.
It doesn't count.
It doesn't
That's not
count.
fan art.
But like, you could still be like, okay, like, yeah, this isn't, a Rembrandt painting, but this like blown out image of Ryuichi Sakamo's ass is great. Like it's good. It's still really good. But for whatever reason, we decided that fanfic authors especially are lesser than other authors.
I hate that so much.
And I guarantee you, if you've listened to the show long enough, you've heard me say that a lot because that was something that I always
Mm.
internalized is that fanfic authors are lesser. Um, and I'm very, very happy to have Carola who's willing to tell me to stop frequently
Yes.
because
Stop.
it's horseshit.
Yeah.
It's horseshit. I
But
mean,
it's
yes.
also it's also a thing that I think so many of us internalized because one of the reasons
Hmm.
I stopped writing fanfic
Hmm.
was because I was going the publishing route and I
Hmm.
didn't want to basically because this was years and years ago, like this was over 10
Hmm.
years ago, Jesus Christ. and and back then it was invalidating. It was
It
like if
was.
your background was fanfic, you wouldn't be
Hmm.
taken seriously. So I had to cut those ties, or at least I felt
Hmm.
like I had to cut those
Hmm.
ties. Um, and now I don't know. Maybe I don't know. My perspective might be skewed, but I feel like it's not that
Hmm.
harsh anymore. I feel like fanfic has become, in a lot of ways, better understood.
I think yes and no.
Yeah,
Well, I think because I'm still in it, I get to see the best of both
yeah.
worlds, just like Hannah Montana. Um, yes,
No, it's fine.
yes.
I
Uh,
I can hear the song in my head.
uh, I hated Hannah Montana.
Yeah, my sister was a big fan. I
You,
hated it too.
you.
And
But
it was dubbed. You don't understand. It was dubbed in Norwegian. It was awful.
okay, but Norwegian Hannah Montana sounds amazing to me. Uh,
No.
so here's the thing. I think for every step that fanfic writers took towards acceptance, something happens and we are sent back a few steps. Things like 50 Shades of Grey that really brought fanfic into the public lexicon.
Yeah.
Um, the Omegaverse lawsuit. Like I feel like for every step that, and as much as I hate Tumblr, Tumblr was big on saying that regardless of how you create, you are creating.
Yeah.
For better or worse, we'll be honest. Because DeviantArt, I think most of the writers on DeviantArt knew we weren't good. That's why I was on DeviantArt.
Yeah.
Like you were there because it was porny or like not high quality. Like we all knew why we were there. But Tumblr really was big on, look, you're already doing what other people sometimes aren't brave enough to do. So take your credit where it's due. But I think for every step that fanfic authors have taken, there is something like the Omegaverse lawsuit. There is something like, 50 Shades of Grey that takes us a step back. And I will admit that there is this like really reductive conversation about like, well, why don't you just write original things?
Yeah.
And I'll say this. I studied English literature. Everything is derivative of something.
Yep.
So do I think that I'm any less of an author because I haven't written a ton of original works? No. I just think I'm a different kind of author.
Yeah.
Now, am I going to go publish my Matt Mello fic and say and like change some settings and publish this as a wholly original work? No. I'm not going to do that. But I'm also not going to discredit the work I put in for that. So there's a meme that I shared in our Discord, the Yaoi Shelf Discord, that it was when reading fanfic, keep in mind that for professional literature, a short story is under 7,500 words. A novelette is between 7,500 and 17,500. A novella, 17,500 and 40,000 words, and a novel's over 40,000. Fics over 40K are literally a novel.
Yeah.
Shared for free. If you've written a 40K plus novel fic, you've literally written a novel.
Yes.
And that was freeing to me because while I can definitely say that what Carola and I do are different, I don't think that my work is lesser in comparison to hers.
No.
It's different.
It's different. But and coming from the other side, and I've said this a lot because I haven't written fic in a million years. and I have so much admiration for fanfic authors because, first of all, I mean, again, which is why I am so constantly, drumming up the whole, please thank your fanfic authors. Please leave comments because they are out there, writing in their free time, or little free time they have, writing and posting and publishing for free and thinking up, like, even if the main premise, the characters are pre-made, they're still out there writing like whole ass novels, like hashing out these plots, and you have all of these, whether it's AU or just canon divergent, like they are making original stories with characters that already exist, but they're still putting in the work and putting it out there. And so many writers have their start in fanfic and learn how to use the language and how to construct a larger plot just writing fanfic. So it's and even if you don't go into original, like, again, it's not a lesser thing. It is. I mean, I have so much admiration. Like, fanfic authors are amazing. And there are so many, like, do you ever just like read fanfic and it's like, this person is so good at writing? Like, it's just mind-boggling how good people are.
Time. And it's weird because like I don't read a lot of like fiction because it tends to be really like tropey. It really tends to have like a lot of just like gross cliches that I don't like. They tend to be really, really predatory towards women. So like I don't read a lot of like fiction in like real life. I will read fan fiction though,
Yeah.
because it's built different. Because like I have this like weird dichotomy, like the kind of books that I like reading in real life are obscura. So it's like take one concept, whittle it down as far as you can, and then make it 500 pages. So like here are some of the books that I have on my Amazon wish list of books that I want that are not at all being solicited because we both have birthdays in July. Um,
Yes, we do.
Techno Orientalism, Imagining Asia in Speculative Fiction, History, and Media. Selling God, American Religion in the Marketplace of Culture. Acres of Skin, Human Experiments at Holmesburg Prison. The Delectable Negro, Human Consumption and Homoeroticism Within U.S. Slave Culture.
These are nonfiction, right? Or
Yeah,
are they? Yeah.
these are all. So, like, that's the kind of book I read for
Mhm.
fun. And then I'd go read fanfic of, like, two mass murderers having a pancake breakfast and kissing each other's
Yeah.
foreheads. Um, but yeah, like, it's great being able now to see other writers as equals. But just like with our ships in the days of old, we're just on two different kinds of boat,
Yeah.
but we're both on a boat.
Yeah. And the thing is, which I think is incredibly liberating, is that I feel like it's become more it's become more open in the sense that people feel freer to do both now, that
Yes.
you can in fact be like, I have seen, you know actually, air quotes,
Mhm.
published authors be out there like, oh, I also write fanfic over
Mhm.
here. Like, that is so liberating, because it's not
Right.
lesser than, because we're all fans of something. Like, I think that is
Right.
so cool. And then you have like authors, who are out there encouraging people to write fic of their stuff, and like actually going in and reading it. I think, I mean,
Mhm.
I've only been on the receiving end once, but it was amazing. Like, the fact that someone actually took the time to write about my characters. I also felt a little weird about it, because I was like, my children. but,
Yeah, it is.
but
I
but it's such an honor, because it
I
means that
I do
someone
remember that
loves
happening
them.
once. Yeah. I remember it happening once when I was in, high school, I think. It was, someone was reading my long-term OC, fiction series, and she said, like, "Oh, yeah, like, this helped, like, me and my boyfriend, like, have sex." And I'm like, "Please don't have sex in front of my children." Like like, they're fictional characters, and, like, I think they were definitely probably doing something smutty, but it was like, "Please don't have sex in front of my
Yeah.
children." It goes back to, like, that wink and tell thing that, like, it's either, like, very, very, very flattering or horrifying.
Also, disclaimer: I don't actually see any of my characters as my children, because I don't have a motherly bone in my body.
I don't
But
see
I
them.
created them. They're close to me, but I don't necessarily see them as my kids.
I
Is
think
that
most of them, I don't really see them as my children, but, like, it is sort of like, at that point, like, being told, like, "Oh, yeah, I wanna fuck your brother." It's like, "Okay, maybe don't
Yeah.
tell me that." You know?
I don't need to. No, I don't need to know that. No, I
Right, like, yeah, I definitely I would not feel comfortable saying, like, they're my children in any way, no, but, like, it is sort of like, "Oh, by the way, I really, really, really wanna fuck your brother." It's like, I could have gone my whole life without knowing that. Carola,
yeah.
why did we choose writing BL over all the other things we could have chosen to write? We could be writing het romance. We could be writing we could be writing stories about homo not homoerotic, but like erotic Bigfoot stories. We could be writing erotic Bigfoot stories.
Why
Why
can't you
me?
have both?
Okay, so I actually feel really, really uncomfortable with stories like that because to me it's a consent problem
Mm.
because Bigfoot is still an animal. Even
Because
if he's like preternatural or supernatural, he's still a creature, and I don't know if Bigfoot can consent.
yeah, I mean, fair.
And that upsets me because, like, there's a lot of stories where it's like, oh, and the Bigfoot took this woman, and it's like, it's Bigfoot. What, like, what is
New
what is
new design coming to the shop soon. Bigfoot can't consent.
he
No,
can?
but I know what
I don't think
you're
he
saying. I
can.
get it.
I don't think Bigfoot. I don't think the Flatwoods monster can consent. I don't think Mothman can consent. We'd have to, there's a communication barrier
Yeah, no,
there.
I get it. Fair.
These are the things that I worry about because it's like, I don't think Bigfoot can consent. Like, if you're just like frolicking around, so like, oh, this is like the myth of consensual sex. Don't fuck in the woods. What if Bigfoot's a minor?
Oh my god. Don't! He's a miner who's been around for 2,000 years. But actually, we don't know when Bigfoot's big feet
There's
come
multiple
of age.
Bigfoots.
When do they come of age? We don't know that. What is the adult age of a Bigfoot? Okay, that's a whole other podcast.
Amanda and Carola become cryptozoologists.
Oh my god.
Now we're trying to figure out who can consent.
Who doesn't love a good Bigfoot conspiracy pod, honestly?
Okay, so here's my Bigfoot conspiracy. I
Okay.
think Bigfoot did really exist. I think it was an extant non-human primate, likely Gigantopithecus. But I think any claim made after the Patterson Gimlin film is absolute horseshit. So any claim that isn't like in that like northwest like rainforest belt from like Canada to Oregon, bullshit. If you're like, I live in Detroit and I saw Bigfoot down at the Wawa, that's
Excuse
not
me.
Bigfoot.
There aren't even any people in Detroit, right?
There
Anymore.
are. Yes, there are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What am
Oh my.
I thought Detroit was like going completely under.
What fictional Detroit are you talking about?
I thought like it was becoming a ghost town.
632,000
Okay,
people in
fine.
Detroit.
It's just that I keep seeing people writing about how Detroit is becoming a ghost town.
Oh, I mean, yeah, people are leaving. It was well over 1 million in 1990. It's down, but people still live there. But like, yeah, if it's like, oh yeah, I saw Bigfoot. He was down at the Wawa getting a chopped beef sandwich. That's not Bigfoot. So like, I don't know who you're talking about. But that's different.
Bigfoot can't shop at Walmart like everyone else.
Okay, if I saw Bigfoot at a Walmart, I'd have a great time. But like, yeah, why did we choose BL? And I think this is something that we covered a little bit in the Fujin Pipeline episode, where at least for me, it ended up being pretty gender affirming. That like I felt like a part of me like locked into place.
Yeah.
When I started writing as a male, specifically writing as Yuki Eri, it's like, oh yes, there's the other part of my personality.
Yeah.
Take with that what you will with that information, knowing everything about me. And there's also probably some extant misogyny that comes in with that as well. Because Carola, I'm sure you can back me up on this. How are women written in most het ships?
Terribly.
Yeah.
It's, from the we were bottle fed damsels in distress to to victims of assaults to eye candy. I don't necessarily always agree with the Bechdel test, but that's the thing. Like there's a whole like women as side characters, as lesser than characters, as lacking in agency. And this this goes back. I've talked about it a lot when I talk about the history of BL, but it also goes to just looking at literary history as a whole.
Absolutely.
Women authors writing under male pseudonyms and or writing male characters because they get to have agency, whereas women don't.
Absolutely. And I think that there's something to be said about the fact that a lot of female or female ascribed at birth writers writing male characters and feeling a certain kind of strength. Um, there's also something to be said about, and I'm going to be really, really careful with my wording here because as a person of color, I know that in the wrong hands, this argument can be used in bad faith. I think that there is some room for the stories we inhabit not necessarily always being just ours because there is no monolithic story. So, like for me, as an African American person in the US, a lot of the stories that are geared towards Black people don't necessarily line up with how I was raised in the society that I was raised in and how my family is. We were not an inner city urban family. We were suburban. We were upper middle class. I went to private school. I was raised Catholic, not Baptist. So most, quote unquote urban fantasy, inner city, stories aimed at Black children, that didn't fit my narrative.
Mm.
I think there's also something to be said, about that shame that females have around sex and sexuality and how freeing it is to write in a male voice and a male tone and to be able to express those things freely and openly. Because yeah, like if I wrote a female character the same way that I write some of my down bad hoes, that character would be mocked and made fun of.
Mm.
There's the take video about method acting.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
like there's a bunch of women that still do the method, but like if any of them were doing like what Jared Leto was doing during Suicide Squad, like they'd be in jail.
Yeah.
Like if Anne Hathaway was like sending like used condoms and rats and shit during like Les Mis, she'd be like they'd lock her up, like she'd be in prison. So, there was the freeing aspect of it being BL. To go back to being a fanfic writer, there's also like a weird sort of like, I'm not going to say it removes the pressure because it adds another kind of pressure, but like sometimes coming up with like purely original things is hard.
Yeah.
So it's nice to like have a sandbox
Yeah.
and then build whatever weird fucked up castle I want.
Yeah.
And
I
I have
agree.
several weird fucked up castles.
I would like to visit. I'm planning to visit your fucked up castles.
Yeah, you're gonna visit the most fucked up one. I've been trying to lube you up with the one that I think you'll actually really like, and you're trying to dive straight into the one that you know is gonna make you angry.
I like to live dangerously. Well, at least
Uh,
I'm not going to friggin' flame you for it.
I wish you would.
Okay, okay. I'm
I
gonna
wish you
leave.
would.
I'm gonna leave 2 comments. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you're
leave
gonna leave.
like
Right,
a
you're gonna
good one,
leave.
and then I'm gonna give you a good old fashioned flame.
Oh my
Okay.
god, I've been waiting for this moment my entire life. Um, I've I'm older, I'm wiser. Um, According to AO3, out of the 11 works I have published, I have written over 65,000 words. And that makes me happy. I am
Yeah.
proud of that number. Um, Carola, do you have anything you'd like to add about why uh, you chose the BL life?
I mean, I honestly didn't choose it. The BL life chose me.
Mood.
Seriously. Like
Mood.
it just happened. I've talked about this before. I definitely
Mhm.
touched on it in the Fujin pipeline episode because
Mhm.
I always, and again, just like you said, a lot of this goes back to poorly written female characters and lack of
Yes.
agency and misogyny. But
Yes.
ever since I was a kid, I always uh, I always saw myself in male characters. I
Same.
always identified with male characters. When I was playing with my friends, I was always a boy.
Mhm.
So I've never been in touch with female characters.
Mhm.
I think even when I was writing Team Rocket fanfic, they were mostly from James's point of view because I
Right.
don't know how to write women. And
Right.
and I think that I mean it I don't have, and I said this as well when I did the a few years ago when I was on that panel with Michi and Fujoshi things when we were
Mhm.
talking about Fujo is not a 4-letter word and how I don't necessarily have like a big, deep like reason for why I enjoy BL and why I write BL. I think it's fun, and I think it's what comes easier to me because I've always identified with male characters, and
Mhm.
it was so liberating when I realized that I can write BL. Like this is the because like when I realized that this genre that is what I'm consuming in
Mhm.
my manga choices, in the fanfics I'm reading, I can
Mhm.
actually write that. No one's standing in the way from of me exploring these stories. For me, it's
Mhm.
about writing characters that come to me and telling the stories that are inside of them or the stories that they are going through, and they just
Mhm.
all kind of happen to be male because that's just what comes natural to me.
Right.
I don't really have like a big reason. I suppose a lot of it again is rooted in how I didn't have any good female
Mhm.
like characters that I could identify with growing up, but also just
Mhm.
because it's just that's just the kind of character that speaks to me. And I think that especially when you do fanfic, like the reason you're writing fanfic a lot of the time is because you want to explore that character, you want to explore the dynamic
Yeah.
between those characters, and so
Yes.
there's something with that relationship or those characters that speak to you regardless of the gender of that character or how you interpret the gender of that
Absolutely.
character.
Absolutely. And I've mentioned this a couple of times, I have this writing manifesto that I promise I'd dig up out of its cold dead grave. And one of the first lines of it is I write for revenge. And
Mm,
a lot of the time that I end up writing, these male characters is almost like a radical act of like misandrist based like radical feminism of like this is the only way that I could express myself. This is society's fault. That like the only way that I felt like the only characters that I could model
mm.
were male characters. Now for
Yeah.
better or worse, because I don't think that's inherently negative inherently, but I think it's telling that more than one person has said that, and we tend to point in similar directions when we say it.
Mm,
So there's some people that can watch Sojo and feel very, very represented and feel like, yep, that's me, I am that girl. And then there's others of us that can't do that. So while it's easy for me to say I don't think that it's just as simple that I chose
mm,
BL, um, it also feels really, really disingenuous to acknowledge that like if I hadn't found BL, do I know that like this would have sprouted organically?
mm.
And I don't have an answer to that.
No.
Um, I probably would have just kept writing as men in like straight relationships, but like all the women that I write are basically women written by men. So they're
Yeah,
great. So
yeah,
they feel differently. They read differently.
and I always knew that I wanted to write, and ever since I can remember I wanted to be a writer. Like I wanted to write
Mhm,
books when I grew up, but I was just
mhm,
I didn't I didn't find my voice until I started writing BL. And it's just
mhm,
these characters. I'm not saying that I'll never write like a female protagonist, I'm
mhm,
just and I have female characters that I care about and who are like, good people. Not necessarily good people, but they are, they have agency, they have
yeah,
personalities, but they are supporting characters because I write BL, so naturally they are not the main character. That's just how
absolutely.
it goes.
And
But like, I don't know. I just want to write these characters and tell their stories and tell the stories that I would like to read,
mhm,
even though I have no control over what these stories will be. This is a
mhm,
very strange conundrum, I feel, because like the stories I want to read, except I don't know how they're gonna end because my boys are just running with it. But yeah,
right.
I
No,
I don't know what I would have written if it wasn't for BL because it's so ingrained in who I am.
right. No, it's interesting to think about because yeah, I do kind of wonder sometimes if I would have ever like entered that realm necessarily organically.
Mm.
Because yeah, we can both say that like our intro was Sasunaru because it was everywhere. Um, I
But
don't know
actually,
how.
I mean,
Yes.
my first ship, I didn't know I was shipping them, but I there was something like I was watching Beyblade, and I was shipping Kai and Rei without realizing it until like years later because they are
Yeah.
pretty. They're pretty.
See, and I really didn't do gay ships until much, much later because I was a rampant hormone monster being raised in a repressive Catholic household. So, like, I just wanted to fuck the characters. I didn't
Mm.
need them to go kiss a boy.
Yeah, but see, that's I wanted to say that also when you mentioned the shoujo bit about how some people
Yes,
can, because I can, I can see myself or aspects of myself in characters,
absolutely.
whether it's shoujo or shonen or whatever,
Correct.
but also like we've already established, my characters aren't me. Like I
No.
write based on experiences that I know or things that I want to explore,
Uh-huh.
but my characters do not equal me.
Uh-huh.
So they're not self inserts.
No,
I
and I will.
don't self insert when I watch or read other things either. I just sometimes there are things you can recognize because it's
Yeah,
similar to what you've been through. It doesn't mean that you
right.
100% identify with the character. So the
Yeah,
experience is more important to me than the gender, but I just happen to
yeah.
prefer writing boys.
No, that ended up happening to me because, like, I started this, like, I've talked about this a million times. It'll probably never see the light of day because, like, I started writing when I was in high school, but I wrote this, like, really, really long gravitation fic.
Mm,
And it started with the main character being really just like a gender swapped version of me. But as I kept writing it, it's interesting to see him become less and less me and more his own character, making
mm,
decisions that he would make, making choices that I wouldn't necessarily agree with, and how his story changed and became something. I use it almost like a litmus test if you can tell when I got good. Because you can tell the parts of it that were written when I was like 15 and 16, just
mm.
like feverishly jerking off into the keys, just trying to get something out because I wanted to fuck Yukieri, but then you can see it change and like you can see how characterization changed. You can see how even talking about that character
Mm.
changed, how he went from being a very, very poorly reskinned me to being his own individual
Yeah,
person
yeah.
to where, yeah, like if I met him on the street, we probably wouldn't get along.
Mhm.
And, I think a lot of that's maturity. I think a lot of that's coming into my own and understanding. Um, I hate making it a self-esteem issue, but I think a lot of it also is that, it's really, really easy to self-insert. You feel like you're trash and unattractive. Um, there was a meme that I remember seeing. It's like women like vampires because they like imagining a world where they are the sole object of someone's desire. They feel that way about villains as well.
Mm.
That like a hero will save you out of obligation, a villain will save you out of desire.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like so a hero is saving you because he has to, right?
Yeah.
A villain is saving you because you're his.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and that's hot. Let's go. um So yeah, like a lot of it is like the horny musings of an insecure, 15-year-old is like, I'm gonna die alone. No one will ever love me, but this fictional man will.
But
Oh my god.
honestly, though, sometimes you just need a fictional man.
Do you think that Eric, the Phantom of the Opera, wrote fan fiction? Do you think he was like writing like Christine fanfic?
Of course.
What do
We
you
had a,
think?
he had a lot of time on his hands.
So much time on his hands. It's also really sad because like I can't imagine like any of like my like theater favorite phantoms like Ramin Karimloo. Whenever I talk about Eric, it's always Gerard Butler, even though I would love it to be the Charles Dance version where he punches out a fake deer.
Clearly, I need more Phantom of the Opera
There's a
in
Charles
my life.
Dance version, and I love Charles Dance. He plays Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones. And if you look at my Tumblr, I actually have a picture of him, and it says "Senpai" in bubble letters. I want to fuck that old man. But it's like hot young Charles Dance, and he's in this like forest scene, and it's clearly like one of those like prop deer that you set up to attract more deer so you can shoot them. And he just like punches it, and because it's like a horrible prop, it just like falls apart, like it just falls over. And it's like the saddest, funniest thing.
Oh
Also,
no.
there's Phantom of the Mall,
Of course there is.
where Eric isn't a sensitive piano player, but he was on the wrestling team, and it's a mall that's getting bulldozed by real estate developers because it's the 80s. And instead of using a Punjab lasso, he roundhouse kicks, and instead of writing music, he bench presses.
Somehow less dramatic than the whole playing in the
So
dark with his back turned.
it's like the guy Eric, like he has like his house burned down because the real estate developers want to buy out his house so they can build a mall. So they burn his house down because it's the 80s. And he doesn't die. He like fakes his death and he like becomes like the Phantom of the Mall. So like the Christine wakes up and she's in this like dirty like rat's nest in like the ducks of the mall and he's just like pumping iron. And it's like this it's Phantom of the Mall is the funniest thing.
I'm just trying to imagine him like pumping iron while grunting out the tune. Like the
There's
Phantom of the
no songs in
Okay.
Phantom of the Mall except for like 80s soundtrack music. Okay.
Okay.
What are some challenges we face writing BL? This is going to be our longest episode.
Yeah. Well, that's what they get. We should probably do like a part 2 at some point. I feel like there's a lot more we can cover.
That's what Patreon
But
is for.
yeah, that's true.
What are some of the challenges? I think for me, honestly, the one that I still struggle with every once in a while is anatomy.
Mm.
I don't have those parts.
Yeah.
And any instances that I have been in contact with those parts, they are not attached to me naturally.
Yeah.
So I can make some guesstimations, but every once in a while, I'll still treat it like female reproductive parts in like the subtle dumb ways like refractory periods and stuff like
Mm.
that. Like I've never written it like that. Like I'm not that bad. Not anymore, or at least because oh my god, if I had to go back and read the smut I was writing before I even knew what a dick was, oh my god, just throwing hot dogs down hallways, no preamble.
Oh my god.
But like, yeah, every once in a while I still do trip up a little bit. There's like, oh wow, they sure have been having sex for 45 minutes.
Yeah. I generally give myself like some free reign there because
Mhm.
I'm like I am writing like okay, it depends on what it is, but if I'm writing
Sure.
like a sex scene like that, it is generally meant for one purpose only, which is to be porn. And
Yes.
porn isn't supposed to be realistic. And it's
Yes.
like I will keep that within, obviously without, within the reins of we are not there are no self lubricating holes, it's not like that, but
Yeah.
it's just like if I want them to fucking marathon for however long, I will let them because this is supposed to be a fantasy. Like it's fine. Uh
Correct.
that's not like my biggest hang up. My anatomy problem, we've discussed this, is when you get all which limb is where, what is going
Yeah. I
on.
don't know. It's all so I mentioned this in our writers chat in Discord. My big thing is so a lot of my writing really was rooted in role play and it was like open chat role play and it was specifically like that T9 kind of open chat role play where like every action you have to close. It's like if you open a door, you close that door. If you leave that door open, something can come in. If you
Mm.
put something down, you have to connect it to an item, otherwise things are just floating out in the air. So because of that, every yaoi room I've ended up making has like the same setup
Mm.
because I know I have to get to the part where there's bed and lubrication. And I don't know where else to hide lube. Because I got really tired of the stories where it's like, oh, it's behind the pillow. And it's like, why are you sleeping with it? Why is the Astroglide behind the what?
No, but
Where are
see,
you
this is
hiding?
this
Yes.
is where what I call my jaded boys, which are the boys in the jaded love addict universe, because they
Mhm.
all work in this horrible seedy nightclub, and all of them are just having half like semi public uh semi-public sex or like
Mhm.
whatever at all times. So in this, like, they have lube everywhere. It's like in all the stalls, it's like hidden in the toilet paper holders, like everything, because everyone's a slut and I love them for it. Like, so they're like, they are always prepared. These boys are always prepared. And then, you have the one, you just slip in like a sentence about how he's still slick because they did it earlier that day. I'm like, it's
That's
fine.
not how that works.
It's porn, Amanda.
Yeah,
I would like to make a statement that I write more than just porn.
I know
My
you.
boys are also suffering a lot. There's no sex in Change of Heart, which is like,
There is not any.
who am I anymore? Uh,
But yeah, like I think like that's my big anatomy thing, and
mm,
then also like yeah, like I do definitely realize that like I have set up every room the exact same because it's like you have to hide the lube somewhere.
mm.
It's not you're not magic. You aren't like Osseo lubricant. Like you're not
Unless you are,
unless
unless
you
it's
are.
unless you are. Uh, I have this weird thing which is
Yes.
like, I know the layout of all of their like apartments and their houses and
Yes.
everything, but particularly the love addict apartment, like Mia and Miura's apartment, I know exactly what it looks like,
Mhm.
except in certain scenes I've written where I like it isn't described any differently. It's just that in
Mhm.
certain scenes I suddenly imagine it completely differently. And I'm like, why does this apartment not look like that in this particular scene? It's all in my
Mhm.
head. Like, no
It's
one can take me on this, but I'm just like, what the fuck? That couch is not there. Like,
right. Where did this sofa come from?
it's
What is
so weird.
happening? Yeah, it's weird. So yeah, like anatomy and then sometimes like layout spaces, and that's not like a BL specific issue. Like I have that everywhere. But like anatomy does still get me every once in a while where it's like, what is refractory period? Like what how do also so understanding the full anatomy, I'm gonna try to be super, super vulgar with this. Um Most BL focuses heavily on like shaft and shaft like things, but there's more to the anatomy than that.
Yeah.
So it's also like not shunning that and acknowledging that like what we think is sexy because of a trope is usually like the least sexy thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's nothing quite like the radical shift from me writing sex when I'd clearly never seen a penis before to me writing sex after I became a whore. Um,
After you became a whore.
yeah.
You're like, I'm not going to be vulgar, but also.
after I gave up some of that purity stuff and
Mm.
stopped and uh and just finally gave in and was a whore. Um, Speaking of whores, did you watch the coronation?
No, I thought I would because I've never seen a coronation. So,
Mm-hmm.
I care fuck all about Charles, like, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
but I really like ceremony things. And
Mm-hmm.
they were showing the whole thing live, but I was
Mm-hmm.
busy and I was out
Mm-hmm.
most of the day, so I'm going to try to catch like the recordings and see at least some of it because I think it's fascinating.
So two things. One, there's been two Charleses before Charles.
Yes.
Neither of those Charleses ended well.
No. I
He
mean,
had an option to not take Charles.
oh yeah, right.
He had an option. He didn't have to take Charles the Third.
I mean, but I guess he's 72 years old. He's been Charles his entire life. I guess it was.
But the Charles before him was beheaded.
Yeah.
Two, there is so I took Latin for like 10 years.
Jesus.
Uh there is a refrain, a canto for the king and queen as they approach, and it's Vivat Regina Camilla, long live
Mm.
Queen Camilla. But the between the British accent and so there's two types of Latin. There's classical, which is Roman. There's vulgar, which is more common, and then there's ecclesiastical. Basically, classical, your V's or W's, and then in vulgar and in ecclesiastic and in ecclesial, the V's or V's. So between the English accent and ecclesial and vulgar Latin, Vivat Regina Camilla ends up being Vivat Regina Camilla.
Oh dear.
And some of the translations of that, of what people are hearing, usually involves like wide back vagina Camilla.
Yeah.
And
I'm
it's
just
very, very funny.
I'm just struggling with the whole like because she's not really queen, she's queen consort.
No, she is queen.
And that is
So, so Elizabeth changed that right before she died. They were at the Tower of London and they made that pronunciation, which is
oh
the place that Charles II died and where queens before her were executed. So, you go say that in front of the Tower of London where all the dead rulers are and the ravens. So Camilla is not queen consort. She is queen.
I am
But
not okay.
she did not take Duchess of Wales because she felt it was disrespectful to Diana. And my favorite response to that was, do you know it was disrespectful to Diana fucking her husband?
Yeah. Like
So,
clearly he was part in that and I am not excusing Charles's behavior. But I'm also over here like do you know like a coronation is an expensive fucking thing. How long do you
130 million pounds.
and how long do you think he's gonna last until they're gonna have to do the next one? They should have just skipped to Will.
Okay, but Will's going to be awful.
But I'm just
I'm
saying.
not saying Charles is going to be good. But like,
I'm not
so
even like I literally said this yesterday. Like when it comes to my own country, I am a royalist because I happen to like our royal family. They're cool.
mhm.
When it comes to Britain, I'm like I like the Queen for whatever weird reason I have for liking the Queen, but now it's kind of I don't care anymore. Just
Yeah. So I was actually watching again, Sophie the Magpie's owner, he did a live stream because he's in the UK. And it's like, we're gonna have a coronation live stream. You can ask me questions about, like English stuff because it's very, very weird. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on. And there was a treason counter. We had a counter for treason. I triggered the treason counter 3 times, and I'm quite proud of myself. What did I do to trigger it?
yeah.
Let's see. Mostly asking about like Charles's relationships to certain people. Everything okay?
Yeah, he's just nagging, but he'll have to wait.
Who's nagging?
The cat's nagging.
Oh. But yeah, so like I asked like, so what are we gonna do with all those pictures of Charles with Jimmy Savile?
I mean, good question.
Like treason counter. That was a brief royal reprieve before we answer the seminal question.
But wait, what about my
Oh,
struggles?
please continue with struggles.
Yeah, I was thinking about them. I think like you said, like most of my struggles aren't directly BL related, and they're not necessarily even like writing related. They're the post production struggles.
Oh,
My biggest struggles, apart from the imposter syndrome, because I am so bad at talking about my own writing and like putting myself out there. It's awful. I don't like. I just want to talk about my boys all the time, but if someone actually asks me, I get all, "Oh no, that's not important. We don't have to talk about it. I don't want you to think that I'm full of myself." Uh, but I like my biggest struggles usually are related to how I will feel inferior in some way. Like I'm afraid that and also, which the next question in the outline is related to that, but like concerns that I have about how it's going to be received,
Mhm.
or if it's good enough. And again, like, being I think some of it is Norwegian, because we have this whole thing where you're not supposed
I
to
was
be
gonna say
proud of.
that's very
Yeah,
Scandinavian.
like, where you're never supposed to be proud of anything you do. You're never supposed to, like, toot your own horn. And
Mhm.
also because I um because you have that whole thing with, because it's BL, and because it's you know often Asian characters, like, there are a lot of things that I'm unsure about, like,
Yeah.
how will this be, but also because I am a Norwegian writing in English, which is not my native language. um and even though that's the language I use for the most part, like, I write in it,
Mhm.
I think in it, most of the things I do are in English, but I still
Mhm.
feel like I feel inferior. So there's a lot of that. And then there's a
Mhm.
lot of the post work. I hate editing. It is my worst enemy. I hate it. I am very bad at actually getting it done. And my biggest challenge when it comes to, like, actually publishing things is getting through the process of doing the paperwork and editing the things and sending it to the editor and all of those horrible things. I'm
You know what? I can imagine
terrible
if
at it.
I had those struggles also, like, I mean, for me, it's like copy paste into AO3. Though I will say, like, sometimes I'm really, really bad about tagging. Like, we had a whole episode on tags and tagging. And, like, sometimes, like, tagging your own work is
Mm.
like, am I giving it away by saying that this
Oh,
is
yeah,
here?
and summaries.
Oh, I hate
Notoriously bad
fucking
at summaries. I don't know
summaries.
how to do it.
Oh, and titles. Fucking titles for shit.
Do you use chapter titles?
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends. But, oh my god, fucking titles. That's why, like, so many of my fics are, like, lyrics to songs because 'cause I'm a
Mm.
16-year-old boy.
Yeah, but
Um,
I do that too, and, like, I really like having chapter titles until I
yes.
get to a chapter I don't know what to title, and then I'm like, "Fuck this, I should have gone with numbers." And then
Well, and, back to, like, the whole thing of, the characters are kind of, like, outside of extant for you. That Kitazawa Eri fic that I wrote, um, I had originally another title for it in mind,
Hmm.
and I knew that I wanted it to be from The Killers because 'cause they're my favorite band,
I love The
but, like,
Killers.
but I ended up choosing a different song title from The Killers to be the title of that, and it's like, oh, it ended up fitting better, but it made but, like, oh my god, it was weird. But yeah, fun fact, my 2 biggest fics right now, um, they're both song lyrics or song titles.
Hmm.
So my Matt and Mellow one is Skyscrapers Please Forgive Me, which is Skyscrapers by OK Go. And then that Ari and Kitazawa fic is My Own Soul's Warning, which is a song by The Killers.
Mm.
Um, and then all of the smut that I did with Edward Elric and Mustang, um, I actually modeled it after the path for transmutation to create
Oh,
um to create the philosopher's stone. Like, I like used actual alchemy.
wow.
See, and like, this is the thing. We'll wrap up a little bit on this. Writers are weird. We are built so different. I translated an entire fic into French so I could write a Hitalia fic in the 2020s
But why?
because it was right.
Okay.
It was the right thing to do. Um, we're built so different, and I think that that's amazing. I think that we should celebrate authorship as it is.
Mm.
Buy the book, leave a positive review on Amazon or on Goodreads or something. Leave kudos and also comments on
Yes.
AO3. Tip your writers. If they have commissions open, commission them. I feel weird about commissions sometimes. But yeah, like support writers and artists because we are out here doing hashtag the most.
Yeah.
Now, we will close on what will be one of our longest episodes. Is this fetishizing of gay men?
Does not depend on who you're asking at this point. Like, the
So,
diplomatic answer.
so I think again there is some validity to that. That there definitely is something worth asking
Mm.
why there's a bunch of, women and women adjacent that feel very, very comfortable writing gay male stories. And that will point you into the direction of two better episodes to discuss why that's horse shit.
That look, you're just like serving.
Thank you. It's the red lipstick, really.
I love it.
Um, Now, are there places where, as a writer, or as you look at a writer, sometimes things feel a little bit icky? So, like, I say this not to be libelous. I do not think that this person is gross. I would never like make that kind of accusation, baselessly. But like John Green, the YouTuber, for me, so I know him mostly as a content creator and as a podcaster, than I know him as an author.
Yeah.
He did a bunch of like manic pixie dream girl YA novels, and I don't read that shit. I
I've
don't
read
read.
some. I've read a couple that
That's fine, but like I
I
don't
didn't
read
get.
manic pixie dream girl shit like that. Um, but like for a good while on Tumblr, there was this huge concern about John Green because one, he had that very, very close relationship with the girl that ended up inspiring Hazel in
The Fault in Our
Fault in
Stars.
Our Stars.
Yeah.
Real girl named Esther, who was like a teenager, and her and John were very, very close. Um, and then also that like he's like a 30, 40, 50-year-old white man who keeps writing like awkward teenage sex. And like again, I don't think he's gross. I am firm when I say that. But like, yeah, I would probably, if someone were to meaningfully engage with that with me, it's like, why do you feel more comfortable doing this? But I feel like most people that would want to ask that question don't want to meaningfully
Mm.
engage with you about that.
Yeah. And like it's not like we don't ask ourselves this question a
Right.
lot. Like
That we have not examined this.
there is so much like stuff going on, like, writers talking to each other, talking to their
Mhm,
writer friends, like, do you
mhm,
think this is problematic? Like, again, I once wrote, I've told this story before. I panicked and wrote my former editor in the middle of the night because I realized that all of my fans, oh, no, that's such a gross word. All of my readers at that time were teenage girls
mhm.
who listed their their favorite novels would be my novel and then Twilight. And then I was like, this is a problem because they're romanticizing the relationship between Edward and Bella, and I have this
Romanticizing Norway.
and then I have this incredibly toxic relationship because in Jaded, like the two main characters,
Mhm.
they like I like to describe them as having benefits without friendship. Like they are tied to each other. They
It's such a
have this
mood.
they have this thing and they can't let each other go, but it's
Mhm,
obviously very toxic.
mhm,
And but I love their dynamic, and as a writer I really really enjoy exploring it. They are super hot together, but I was concerned that my teenage audience were
mhm.
going to romanticize this, and so I panic and I'm emailing my editor in the middle of the night just like, are you sure I can publish this, because what if blah blah blah? And he's like, calm down. And he talked me down. And I know that, this depends on the reader. It
It
depends on
does.
who, it depends on where you're coming from. Like,
It does.
like you said about John Green, and I've said this before, like, I like to write characters who are in their teens or like early 20s because I
Mhm,
have been in my teens and early 20s. I
mhm,
have gone through those faltering steps of, finding your sexuality. And
mhm.
I write what I know. So I write anxious gay boys
Boo.
who who are trying to find their way and who make
Right.
mistakes or whatever. And that's not because I'm fetishizing gay men or because I'm fetishizing teenagehood, but because
Mhm.
I was a teenager once. Like, I know. And obviously now the characters like in Change of Heart, they're in their 20s because I have now lived my 20s, so now I can write
Right.
about them. But when I was in my early
Absolutely.
20s, what did I know? Teenagehood.
Right.
That's what I knew.
Right. And I think it's like everything we talked about with Dr. Thomas, and it's like
Yeah.
you're assuming that we aren't meaningfully engaging with these questions, which
Mm,
I would beg you to find a BL author who is worth their salt that isn't engaging with that.
yeah.
Because without being shady towards the end of the episode, I certainly can promise that there are some BL authors who are not thinking about this critically and are probably using some of this stuff unscrupulously. Lipstick. Um, of course, those people exist. Of course, those
Yeah.
bad actors exist. But I would argue that most BL creators, one, most of us aren't women anymore.
Mhm. Which is
most of
fair.
us aren't most of us aren't really women anymore. Um, but also that we haven't beaten ourselves up over that for the better part of 15
Yeah.
years.
And like, I for me, it's like a double struggle because it's like
Mhm.
there's the are we fetishizing the gay men? Why can't I pronounce that word anymore? Like,
We were doing so well by not bringing it up, and then we have to bring it up, and it's like, oh
yeah.
fuck.
I don't know how to pronounce it anymore. Like, but it's the gay men thing, and then it's the Asian men thing, which is
Yeah.
I am trying. Like, the thing is, when I was younger, in particular, I had this idea that BL had to be Japanese,
Mhm.
and so I don't necessarily feel that way anymore, but I will also
Mhm.
say that I am a little bit self-indulgent. I write like when I name my characters, I like to give them names that
Mhm.
that I enjoy. And I'm
Mhm.
sorry that I'm not attracted to, certain names. Like, I could never use like Norwegian names, for instance. Like, also that would be weird because I write in English. And
Well, and to piggyback off that a little bit, I have that issue kind of almost in reverse where like I do occasionally get some heat for not writing black
mm,
characters. And it's like, one, I am incredibly detached from my blackness. I grew up in suburbia. I am very white hegemonic. That's how my family raised me. I am super, super detached from my blackness. Also, as we mentioned, there is no like monolithic black story.
mm,
There's just stories involving black people. So, like, no, there isn't a lot of like radicalization in my story. There isn't a lot of that. It's a lot of watching Naruto and looking pretty. Um,
yeah.
so I get some flack for not writing black characters, and it's like, well, a lot of that's internalized racism. A lot of it is that.
Mm,
And then a lot of it also is, genre. It's genre trope.
yeah.
Exactly. I don't necessarily think of a lot of my characters as Asian, but like that very like weird like Anglo filter
Mm,
that a lot of BL uses, where it's like they're not exactly Japanese, but there is this weird
yeah.
like vaguely white filter.
And I think I use like, and again, because I and I've talked about this so much. I was
Mhm.
so young when I published my first novel. So the first
Yes.
three are in a series, and
Mhm.
there are so many things I would do differently. And again, if I ever sit down to actually do what I said I would do this year, which is to re-edit them so I can give them some tender love and care, there
Yes.
are things that are going to be changed. But obviously, at this point, I'm not going to rename them. I'm not going to change the setting
Mhm.
because I made a choice as a stupid child. I was still a teenager when I started
Mhm.
writing these characters, and I think that, that's not necessarily an excuse, but again, this was the early 2000s. We didn't
Mhm.
have conversations
No.
like we do now about cultural appropriation and identity and all of these things, and I was so unaware of a lot of these things that I'm aware of
Mhm.
now. So when I was writing Change of Heart, like, they aren't like I made a very informed choice to not say where this was. Like, I
Mhm.
gave them names that I vibed with, that the characters, they essentially name themselves. So
Yeah.
but for the most part, there's no mention of where this is. They don't have, because, and that gave me more freedom to
Mhm.
explore because then you can make it simple. It's like, well, I don't necessarily have to state why this thing is a thing, because this is like X city, like you don't know where it is, and
Right.
it makes it more accessible for more readers because more people
Right.
can recognize it. But I didn't think about that when I was 18 years old, right? But
Well,
I had a conversation with my friend Stephanie, and she is Filipino American. And
mm,
before I was releasing this novel, I was freaking out because, since I released my last novel, the
mm,
purity cult has grown out, of
mm,
nowhere. And everyone is really, rightfully so, invested in cultural appropriation and things. And I was
correct.
horrified. I was so afraid. And I was like, do you think that I should, like, should I do something? Should I, like, is it okay if I name them this? Like, whatever. I
Mhm.
was like, I was just venting. I'm not using my one, like, oh, you're Asian. Let me you solve my
It's like,
problem.
oh, a person of color, come here.
Yeah,
You know?
no, that wasn't it. We were literally having Chinese food and venting about our artist
Chinese
issues.
food, really, with the Filipino friend.
Yeah, because it was because we were hungry. Okay. No, we were literally having food and ranting about our
No,
lives as
I
creators.
love that. No,
And no, and
completely.
she was like, and but the thing that she was like, she kind of just shrugged and she like, I don't like, why is it a problem? And I'm like, Pixie, I'm white. And she was like, all right. It's like, you don't understand. I don't want I am trying.
But like, it's weird to me, and like I realize that like I've circumvented a lot of that by like writing fanfic. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, like when I set gravitation stuff in New York, a lot of it happens in New
Yeah,
York.
exactly.
I can ignore that, Aries very, very white looking and very white coated and is praised for not being Asian looking at all, which is why everyone thinks that, like he's the hotter brother in comparison to Tatsuya,
Mhm.
which we don't have time to talk about that. Um,
Gravitation episode 2.0.
right. Why Airy, the Aryan looking one, is the hot brother in comparison to his more Asian looking brother, but okay, sure, pop off, I guess. You know, like I really like I wrote myself a pass out of dealing with that because I didn't know how to deal with it.
Mm,
And I still don't know how to deal with it. Like when I come up with OCs, almost none of them are black because I don't feel connected to that. And I'm not going to go any further into that because I don't have answers and that's not a dialogue I want to open up. Um but like yeah, like I feel like when you ask that question, are you fetishizing or is this appropriative or one, I think most of the time you're asking people that don't necessarily have answers to this. And two, they don't have answers to it because they've already been examining this for
mm,
years. And a lot of that is genre fiction. A lot of that
yeah.
is, it comes down to personal, personal history and background. And I realized I basically wrote that problem out of me by by staying in the fanfic space. Now like yeah, same, like I have that with sexual orientation and gender representation of my fics where
Mm.
like they started off written very very poorly from a I feel uncomfortable calling myself cis back then, but like from
But
a
you thought you
perspective,
were like you,
yeah. So like
yeah.
I feel uncomfortable saying that I was cis back then, but like, written in a way that in hindsight was less than good.
Mm. And when we're talking about this, it's not like we're making excuses
Not
for
at all.
ourselves, but
Not at
it's
all.
it's so hard to navigate. And once something's out there, it's out there. And I'm so bad at talking about these things because I feel like I'm just digging a hole for myself and making it
Well, and
worse.
like
But I
that's
want to
the
be
reason
transparent
why.
about my insecurities.
But like that's why like I've never posted my big gravitation fic. Like there's so many reasons why I won't do that because I am also a coward and I don't want to open myself up to that scrutiny.
Cowards
Because,
unite.
yeah, because I'm also a fucking coward.
Yeah.
And no, I don't want to talk about how I wrote, trans characters in 2003. I don't want to talk about that.
When your only source of reference was the limited media that
Right.
that we
Oh,
had at
forgive
that
me.
time.
This is more like, forgive me. This is more like 2005, 2006. Like things got much better. But
Yeah.
like, No, I don't want to talk about how I framed transness or queerness or, you know, even just sexual attraction.
Mm.
Because, yeah, when I look back, my shit was predatory as fuck. Because that's all that was around me. I was a high school American with a fat ass and giant tits. Every romance was predatory.
Yeah, and you know, it was part of that journey. Like again, like you said, you were writing porn before you knew what a dick was. Like that is
Sure was.
like the, you can't really necessarily judge someone on how they were navigating those spaces back then
Yes.
necessarily. And also I think that again, because it's BL, it's supposed to be homosexual romances, right? So
Hmm.
romances between men, that is the genre. Like that's it. That's
Yes.
the genre, like it or
Yes.
not. But also again, neither of us, at least speaking for the two of us, we're not trying to write, you know, like the unilateral gay men experience. We are writing this the
No.
experience of these specific characters
Yeah.
in this specific
I
setting.
would
Like
I would absolutely cry if someone was like, I modeled my gay experience after your fic. I'd be like, you need help.
yeah.
Like, that's not good.
Like yeah, I've had friends like say to me when they're going through something and they get a little like salty towards like an ex-partner or whatever, and
Mhm.
they've been like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, I basically turned into Aki today. I'm like, don't do that.
Don't, that's not, yeah,
He's a trash gremlin. Like you're not supposed to, like, you can love him as a character, but don't copy him, please, because he's a
that's
fucking
also,
disaster.
I also do love that where it's like, oh my God, like, I'd love to be like one of your characters. And it's like a
No.
sociopath.
A sociopath who gets abused by the author.
Yeah, a sociopath with his dick out. You want to be that?
I
Okay.
freaking love the sociopath with his stick out.
I mean, great character trope, but like, not a,
Yeah, yeah,
not,
no.
not an aspirable life
I
goal.
I don't want to be one of those. I don't want to know any of those.
Yeah, like,
No, thank you. I would call the police,
right,
frankly.
like it's very funny because yeah, like every once in a while I'll be like, oh my God, like that character is such like a boss. But I'd love to be like them, and it's like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
You
And
really don't. Uh,
yeah,
to wrap
there's
things up,
so much to say about this. We could go
yeah,
on forever.
we
Right?
really could have like 4 episodes on
Like
this. We're gonna
seriously,
wrap.
do if you have any like comments or questions on what we just talked about, like please send them to us so we can
Yeah,
address it, because
comment.
I always feel like I'm leaving a lot of threads hanging and making myself look worse for it. So
You
like
don't. No,
please ask us to
you did great.
oh god.
Okay. Where can people support our work? You
What?
first.
Me first? It's like again with the weird oh there you are.
It's been over a year. We're never getting it, okay?
Trying so hard
It's
to
never happening.
there you are. I'm pointing towards you right now,
Thank
kind
you.
of like in a weird, like
Yes.
Egyptian hieroglyphic way. Yeah, no. Where can people support me? Oh God. See, and I instantly go into that. No, I don't. I don't need it. No. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Right. So you can essentially follow me everywhere at Author Carola. I mostly use Twitter and Instagram.
Mhm.
I do have a website,
You do.
authorcarola.com, where you can find all the links to where I am on the internet,
Mhm.
to my to where you can buy my books,
Mhm.
and also to my future projects, my future endeavors. I am trying to launch that Patreon. I really am.
I believe in you.
I ran into some paperwork I don't understand because there's a whole ass thing happening behind the scenes here that I don't understand.
You
But
know I
yeah,
could just like help you, right?
yeah, but you can't help me with the weird Norwegian tax rules.
I mean, no, you're right.
No.
Um,
But yeah, so at
you
Author Carola.
you can find me by writing your intentions upon a clay dove and sending it to
No!
you can find me by my weeb name AichiYume everywhere. I will spell it out in yield description.
Yeah, we'll put the links in the
We'll put
comment
links
box
in
in the
description,
thing.
and you can follow my AO3 and read my horrible smut. Sidebar. So in my birding server, everyone knows that I really like quails. So anytime there's a quail, people will comment, and someone posted an image of a chucker, which is a type of partridge, and I freaked out because a chucker is the bird that the horrible nurse and Hotiful boyfriend is. And I was like, oh, there he is. So I was very, very distracted because chuckers are very cute. They're very, very round. They're great partridges, but it's like, oh, I know him.
Not sure if affectionately.
No, it's affectionate. I like him. I like him a lot. It's a little scary, but it was like, oh, you look familiar. This is the part of the show where we thank our patrons. I have not been reading out your names because I forget to open up the tab, but I will start doing that if you guys tell me to do so. But please know, to every patron on the internet, we appreciate you very, very much.
We love you.
We love you. Patrons at during every month get at least one piece of exclusive content at a certain level, exclusive merch, and moving forward, options to pick what we do next in the show.
Yes.
Including our Hotiful boyfriend run.
Yes, we need you to tell us which choices to make.
We will go back to Hotiful boyfriend. If you would like to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/the Shelf. Again, that is patreon.com/the Shelf.
Join our Discord. Follow us on
follow us
Twitter, Insta.
Yeah.
All the links are in the description box.
All links are in the description. Comment. Let us know if you have any questions about writing.
Yeah, we will. I forgot. I've been posting like question stickers on Instagram and also on Twitter. Great. So, like, if you have any questions about our writing or like BL writing in general, send them to us. We'll answer them in the live.
Yeah, for sure. Let us know. Carola, next month is special.
Oh, very special.
Next month is Pride.
Yes.
And we're doing something extra special to celebrate.
A special guest.
Ooh. Do you want to tell the audience at home what we're doing? If we back out now, Carola, it fucks up the whole calendar.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna fuck up the calendar.
The moment of panic, it's like, well, Carola, it's a little late now.
That's not what I meant. I just thought maybe we wanted to make people suffer a little more. No, if I'm allowed to talk about it, I'll gladly talk about how we have invited a very special guest to join us to talk about BL scholarship. We have the magnificent Professor James Welker joining us next month.
Dr. Welker.
Dr. Welker, yes.
We invited one of the premier BL scholars to talk about an intro into BL scholarship. It felt right to do for Pride. It felt right to do for this part of the show. So I'm very excited to have Dr. Welker on the show. I'm very, very excited. I will once again be up very, very early in the morning. So if I look and seem hollow, it is because time is a myth.
I tried to sacrifice myself, but again, my time zone is in the middle.
Somehow your time zone ends up being the favorable one, where either of us on either coast are just like fucked.
And I'm trying so hard. Like, I'm so willing to sacrifice, but my time zone.
And Carola's just like, oh, I've had a lovely little nap. I've had some lunch. It's, early evening, and it's like Amanda's crawling out of bed at 3:00 in the morning. Like, hello.
Well, I mean, we had to make a sacrifice, and unfortunately, that had to be you because we don't want our guest to sacrifice his sleep schedule.
Absolutely.
Like, if you want to be a guest on the Yaoi Shelf and you're not in our time zone, we will accommodate you.
Yes.
Usually by sacrificing Amanda.
Yeah, by sacrificing Amanda.
I try. Yeah. It's not my fault.
Like, if you decide to be a guest on the Yaoi Shelf, you will be well taken care of, fully at Amanda's expense.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm super excited to have Dr. Welker on the show.
Be so good.
Thank you to our patrons. Thank you for listening.
You. Thanks for listening.
We will see you guys at the end of the month for a live stream. Stay writing. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.